first agreement of the 4 agreements. Be impeccable with our word. Speak with integrity. Say only what we mean. Avoid using the word to speak against ourselves or to gossip about others. Use the power of our word in the direction of truth and love. So this is just going to be a quick one this morning. We always say that. Let's see if that actually happens and we're impeccable with our word. Morning. So we do this process. Yeah, we can do this. We can do this. For a multitude of reasons. There's always a multitude of reasons to everything that we do. But the fundamental current main reason that is being prioritized is this is our process to witness ourselves because of our DID, dissociative identity disorder, and the way we dance with self-awareness, self-development, or selves awareness, selves development, because there's multiple us's in this one body. That's from the current societal mental health or health system terminology. For us, and as much as we understand, it's thought to be in the mind, and the mind's thought to be in the brain. For us, that doesn't align, that doesn't harmonize. We mentioned before, this is a follow-on to yesterday's live on this, which is why we're doing it, because we've just learned something about ourselves again since doing what we're doing with this, showing you our process of what we're doing with this, you being you, someone else that's been brought to this journey, witnessing our journey, but also another one of us alternate personalities that isn't connected to us, that has to watch these videos to connect to us. And they need to put by happy tears of connection and relief. We're going young, our when you go young, and our body gets weaker, our muscles get weaker. And even though it sounds like we sidetrack or go round in circles, for us, we don't. For us, everything is interconnected, even if we're not consciously aware and connected to all of us. Everything in the world, the multiverse, the universe, because it is a multiverse and it is a universe, there's the singularity and there's the multilarity. This, it sounds like there's one of us talking because of the one voice, but there's not. There's always a few of us functioning. It's just this is what we've done our whole life because we didn't know about the DID, and whichever altar, there's always a few functioning at once, and whichever altar oversees this, which would be from a spiritual terminology, a higher self, from a maybe a scientific terminology, not using spiritual language, it would be awareness, the observer. And the more one understands awareness and the more one starts learning and knowing and understanding, the more one understands how vast it is and how little they know. But it's still all interconnected, and words and language are hugely important to us because we feel it's because of our autism. For us and our understanding of autism, people think like if all people are autistic and low functioning autism, they aren't empathic. They don't feel what's going on around them. They can't be empathic or do something to accommodate someone else's needs. But it's because in their family lineage, on the generational healing, on the automatic instinctual subconscious patterning of the body to make them be okay, they've been cutting off the peripheral nervous systems, the nervous system that receives the information from the external world, the collective objective agreement reality, which for us stems from the subjective, from the person that's able to express the subjective agreement that aligns with many people that have a similar subjective agreement and is able to express that, and it's kind of, one can see the alignment, the harmony in that patternology, and that's made up the objective agreement external reality that we live in, because the slowest wavelength is red, the fastest wavelength is violet in the rainbow. If you run a race in this physical, tangible, seen reality, the slowest person comes last. And for us, this is something in the external, tangible, seen collective objective agreement reality that aligns with the subjective internal agreement reality, which for us doesn't happen very often, because in the patternology there's this back to front, this mirror on the inside and the outside on certain aspects of it. And going back to the DID, for us the DID isn't just in the mind, it's in the body. Not just in the mind, if the mind is just considered up here, it's in the body. So because we're so presently aligned and we're aligning our internal and external realities, but there's the bit in between, the boundary in between the internal and the external reality, the liminal space, the in-between space, that's putting it simplistically. If we were to go down to another level, so it's like you've got the whole, the circle, that's split into duality, which is the figure of 8. But then if you understand sound and frequency and vibration, and when you get a line and do the seed patterns and the jumping, you'll get kind of one seed pattern, which is if you do 2 circles, we did this yesterday, if you do 2 circles, you have and they over across each other, you've got the bit in the middle, which is we don't know what you'd call it, a kind of seed shape, a squished in circle. So it's kind of like more like an oval, a really narrow oval that's pointy at either end rather than curves at either end. But then if you were to split that, you'd get like 2 in the 1 and then 3 in the 1. And these are intervals. This links into music. So you can think of the body as the whole. And when people do energy work, they say, think of the energy. Well, we don't know if it's this way round or not, because we're not got to this wholeness of energy. We talked about the pictures that we discovered on Pinterest of the interconnectedness of everything, where you've got the Fibonacci sequence and you've got the spiral in the multiverse, the spiral in the pine cone, the spiral in the sunflower, and that's the spiral in the body. And the spiral energy, the spiral directional energy in the body, coming from the polarity therapy terminology and perspective, is created by the elemental force of air, breath, the lungs. That creates the circular spiral movement. And in the quantum realms, the phenomenon of in the subjective, the feminine, the receptive, the negative ion, the passive, the dark, the night. Tito Pomomo, the tiger, the unknown tarot, whites for high priestess number 2. And white normally go with masculine daytime, but that's feminine. And the panther black normally goes with the nighttime, the feminine, but panther black, masculine energy, daytime. So they opposite, and we like that, because we've been reading the Tao or Tarot, and you call the Yang soul and the Yin soul, and Yang soul upper dantian in the brain. Oh my God, lovely. Thank you for sharing. So they're putting stuff together. Because our internal realities and external realities align so much, and because we're deaf, blind, and dumb inside, the tools that we're using to gain co-consciousness, to gain wholeness, balance, connection between us all um, means that most people, they do astro travel, lucid dreaming. So they do this healing from their sleep state where they interpret their dreamings, or they do healing from the waking state where they might go into trance state with shamanism or something else, or hypnotherapy. But they're putting themselves into that state. But for us, this is our general waking everyday life state. So when you've got people like Cindy and others that do tarot reading, they're putting themselves into, they're changing their brain wavelength from the everyday functioning beta brain wavelength into a more receptive waking state brain length that's more like alpha. And theta is going into the deep kind of sleep. Oh, we think that's gamma. Okay, so you go down from beta every day to a more relaxed state, which is alpha wavelength, down to theta, which is deep healing. And you can do this, can be waking state or sleeping state. But then you've got gamma, which is going up to a faster vibration, because in the spiritual world, they always talk about higher vibration, higher self. Humans are always seeking more or higher. And for us, that doesn't harmonize, that doesn't align. For us, one needs to embrace the whole spectrum of the vibration to become a whole integrated, balanced being in their physical body, mental body, emotional body, spiritual body, ethical body, blah, 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 blah. Sexual body, or the sensual body being the main basin, vortex, vessel to carry that creative energy. Hence, when people go celibate or sustain from sexual interactions, if they don't understand how to guide and move the energy consciously or subconsciously, the difference being the body can naturally do it. So it just happens automatically, but then one brings it into the conscious awareness and suddenly there's ding, 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 and conscious insights and epiphanies. But if the body can't naturally do it, which is happening in more and more in the symptoms and the consequences and the repercussions of the dynamics of the current societal world we live in, because of the central nervous system disorders, then the automaticness can't happen. The autonomic nervous system can't happen. And so therefore it's not happening automatically. So therefore there's a conscious awareness that then goes into the subconscious to make the subconscious do it automatically. So the autonomic nervous system is where we automatically breathe, or we do all these things just instinctually, naturally, because the body can do it. But the body's starting to not be able to do that, because not only are we going through a cosmic shift, energetic shift from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, which is a massive timeline span. But we feel that we are getting to the center of that timeline span, or a global shift in the geological tectonic plates, movements, shifting of the energy. If you go into the energetic centers of Earth, they're always shifting, because Earth is a physical manifestation of the collective of humanity. So you have Jung with psychology that talks about the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious is the collective of every individual human being's unconscious. And it's had to alchemize it all together. And then that collective unconscious is the fundamental energy that impacts every individual. How much it impacts every individual depends how connected they are to their body. And then when it and their heart, and then when it impacts them, it depends whether they are a reactive being, more in their instinctual state, or have become very self-aware, very understanding, and manage to know what their reactions are and their triggers are, and they've know how to manage that and become more of a responsive person. Oh, wow, we just really sidetrack. So for us, the mind doesn't reside up here. The human body isn't a singular personality. It depends what group of people you're with, but not just people, energies, animals, environments, city, country, land, culture. And then one's individual energy kind of reflects or mirrors or alchemizes that state to then be whatever they need to be in that moment to be okay. And all humans lie to themselves. And for us, that's why we've got processing language disorder, but that's why words don't work. For us, having human interactions, we spent so long attempting to have human interactions, and they didn't work because the majority of humans, out of the majority of people we know, probably all of them, we're the one that's done the most self-awareness, most self-development work to get to understand and know ourselves. But yet at the same time, if we're then going to have to word ourselves and describe all that in the current way that society functions, we would probably come across as the one that's the least. We've put in the most effort, we've done the most work, but to describe it and express it and word it in the current way, we would come across as being the least, probably because we're strengthening our language skills, our understanding of language, because words and language is illogical. You get people coming from other countries and starting to speak the English language, and in their own country they're fine, they speak English, suddenly they're dyslexic. For us, that says something more about the English language being illogical than and non-intuitive maybe than the person. And we function very much on energy. We don't function on words. When people's words and actions don't align, then they don't have good communication skills to be able to talk about their emotions and their feelings afterwards, which in a world where a lot of people think emotional intelligence is pseudoscience, they're not going to be able to do that, because we're in a world which measures intelligence by intellectual intelligence rather than emotional intelligence. And that's just two of them. There's many different intelligence: hand-eye coordination, movement, body, breath. There's heaps of them, and this is our dear Auntie Ursula that taught us a lot of this. R.I.P. We've actually got here a little jump thing that we did ages ago. We wrote on this last night, R.I.P. And we've got a little sniff pot that we got in India many years ago, and still is amazing, because and we put on this gold ring, and then this ring which we got from black market in Cambodia. I'm not sure where we got that one. It might be in the same place. And so, because in this book we just read yesterday, because yesterday was Tuesday. Tuesday is ruled by Mars, and Mars is number 16, rebirth, or 61 if it's from one of the different plane mirrors, which is self-love, and it's the Tower card. So we read the Tower in this, then we read the Hanged Man. Was it the Hanged Man we read afterwards? Is that the one that's to come? Yeah, the Hanged Man. And then today we're going to read the Hermit and then the Magician, because it's Wednesday. Wednesday's ruled by Mercury, because in French you've got Wednesday is mercredi, and mercredi kind of sounds like Mercury. So there's all this phonical sound. When you go back into the etymology of words, there's all these phonics and sounds that yeah, we're not meant to be talking about that. So anyway, she talks about her dreams. It's the first time we've done it. Let's just check to be impeccable with our word. Yeah, it's the first time we've done it. But yesterday we've actually started highlighting stuff and making notes, which means more of us are coming together, because our alternate personalities aren't just in the societal view of the mind being in the brain. That for us, the mind is in every single bacteria, which makes up a bacterial community. Because consciousness is, for us, consciousness is God, consciousness is everything. And then you have an expression of consciousness, whether that's the collective unconscious expression of consciousness, whether that's the collective conscious, and this is in humanity, of consciousness, whether it's the animal kingdom of consciousness, the tree kingdom of consciousness, the insect realm of consciousness, the individual insect, the individual tree, the rock, the book, everything is consciousness. Consciousness is, but from our understanding, society, the conventional scientific world sees consciousness as an aware, conscious state from your conscious mind, whereas your subconscious is consciousness, but it's an unaware state. But that's from, again, the current scientific world as we understand it, because for us, each alternate personality has a subconscious, a conscious, and a superconscious. The superconscious being the gamma rays, the faster vibrations, the subconscious being the theta rays, and this is all new to us now coming out, and the conscious maybe being the beta wavelengths or the alpha. And she talks about, in her dream book, she talks about going through, in one of her dreams, a lady comes to her in a dream, uses her right hand to draw a circle. I think the circle was anti-clockwise, but for us then it gets confusing because different ones of us see it all from different perspectives, and we're guessing it's from her perspective and she's viewing the lady, so from her perspective it's anti-clockwise, but from the lady drawing the circle it would be clockwise, because that's the duality, differences of perspectives. So the body for us is the autonomic nervous system of the body is the automatic, it's the instinctual, it's the reflexes, it's the ones that we don't have to consciously think about. If we're now picking up this green tea and drinking it, that's a conscious action, and we're choosing to do that. Drinking it is we all complicated my combination between conscious and subconscious, because swallowing is kind of an instinctual state, but maybe that's a conscious swallowing because we're choosing to drink, so that comes into play. A subconscious swallowing would be maybe when someone's in a situation, they're getting nervous and you see them clenching their jaws and swallowing. For us, before the psych ward, one of the things was we couldn't eat, we couldn't swallow, so this is the EDS. So there's many different layers. It's not just like when you start doing psychology, you've got the conscious, the subconscious, and the bit in the middle. There's layers upon layers. It's integrated, and this is where you get the art, the creative, the abstract, and then you've got the logical. For us at the moment, we're dancing with the abstract logical and the logical abstract, so it's connecting the hemispheres of the brain. So it wouldn't surprise us in the future that at the moment the brain is in two distinct hemispheres, but when you get more of these human beings bringing their subconscious, their body, their autonomic nervous system, so in talking therapies, which don't work for us, we did lots of them, that's talking, they did teach us a lot, but they would, without us realizing, they'd trigger us and stress us out more because of our language challenges with our dyslexia, our processing language disorder. And this is why we're coming on here, because we talked about something yesterday, watched the video, the live that we did yesterday, then started this process again and thought we would figure out the 10 of Wands without looking at the patch wisdom wheel, with what we'd learned from in our processes, with what we learned from the video, to re-embed, to repeat, to connect that information. But realised again, because there's a lot of us that gets things backwards, we weren't able to be impeccable with our word and the stuff that we said, like always, hence why we do these videos. And the foundational reason being for different ones of us to watch, so that we can watch them back, and we're in a different energetic state when we're watching them back. And when we're doing them live, it's a different energetic state because we're connecting into the World Wide Web, the man-made Akashic records, the Akashic records being the library, the data information of everything, consciousness. The electromagnetic fields or the bioenergetic fields. It's all interconnected with these unseen energetic states, our own one that we're giving off, but we're the center of our own reality, to the collective of that community or town or tribe or country or global nation. There's just so many, it depends what you're choosing to be the thing. And so for us, because words are limiting, you've got this whole new earth, how to create heaven on earth. I mean, you've got to get everyone into an alignment. And if everyone has a different understanding or attachment to words, that's challenging. But if everyone is dancing from a full spectrum of a vibrational state where actions speak louder than words, which is what we've been following, and that we start understanding the importance of differing and diverse belief systems, because they get filtered through the heart, which is the value-based systems, then that for us correlates to the humans being the gut biome of Mother Gaia. And you need to have a healthy gut biome, whether it's your gut biome, your gut brain axes, or the gut brain biome axes, or your gut skin biome axes, or your gut nose biome axes. It's they're all the different bacteria. We're talking about the microbacterial realm of the energetic body, but then you've got the cellular realm of the energetic body, but then you have the cellular realm of the energetic body, but you have the cellular realm of the physical body, and the physical and the energy and then the energetic are meant to kind of overlap. And when we're living with generational trauma, where family patterns get carried down the family lineage and don't get broken, they get repeated, then that has an energetic imprint, energetic pattern on the body, which impacts the physical pattern of the body, the physical pattern of the body being the posture and the alignment, the habitual states of the body. So all of this for us, we've been going back years doing all of this. So the DID for us isn't just in the mind. Well, for us, the DID is just in the mind, because the DID is the terminology for a fragmented self due to this physical life that we've led and the different traumas we've had in our physical body, energetic body, sexual body, from all the experiences, but also from our paternals traumas, because we're half our maternal traumas, we're half our maternal, and theirs that goes on. And so the deeper we get into ourselves to reorganize and repattern our energetic body, our physical body. Currently, the world comes from the outside in. It's developing the physical body, but we do it from the inside out, and we do it from the inside out, starting with the energetics, because we've attempted it the other ways our whole life and it hasn't worked. And so this is what's working for us, and it makes more sense that work smarter, not harder. For us, it's maximum output, most ease. But there's a phrase to that which we can't actually remember in this moment, which is awesome, because we say maximum output, most ease, because if the patterning is not all connected, only certain words come out. So it might be maximum come out, it might be most come out, it might be output, it might be ease. All of those are on their own are positive connotation wording. Maximum output, most effort, least. Maximum output, least effort. So if you were to take out least, that's not a very optimum harmonic word from the current societal way when humans want more of something. Effort is hard work. We don't want hard work. So that's why we shifted those terminologies around, hence pro-peace, anti-war. And for us as an autistic body, we react to wording. People with autism change their patterning, cut off their peripheral nervous system, cut off their connection to the external reality, because it's become too much to cope with, because they feel so intensely, and we feel so intensely, and we feel so deeply. And of course, everything's a spectrum, a seesaw. And so that can go from the low functioning autism to the high functioning autism. And we've experienced it all. So going back to the Tao, so it'll be interesting. I suppose when we kind of are able to start doing editing again, we can go back and edit this and edit the section that we're talking about autism and put that together. Edit the sections that we're talking about the Tao of Tarot, put that together, because we're going to go back to the Tao of Tarot now. And we think we understand and feel we understand that we can only talk, because we're so aligned, we can only talk about so much, because that patterning in the body, if it's at its optimum harmonic resonant functioning, it ought to dance in the energetics of the toroidal flow, which from a 2D perspective looks like the labyrinth. But when trauma happens, and the labyrinth is basically one way in, one way out. And then you've got and that's where the Sushumna, the central nervous system, the energetic channel coming down the spinal column from the brain, is uncongested and clear and functioning optimally and healthily, and the peripheral nervous system is, and both of them are together. Now, in a body that is kind of shutting down, so we're going back to Squirmy and Grubs now. Shane isn't able really to function much of his peripheral nervous system body, his limbs of action, his hands, his feet, his arms, but his central nervous system's functioning really well. But because we've danced with the masculine energetics so much, there's no negative to this. This is just this is just the evolution of consciousness. This is the evolution of the expressions of collective conscious in humanity and the collective unconscious in humanity. And it used to be more in the feminine energies, where people and cultures just believed in the unseen, believed in gods and deities, and the cosmos and all these mysteries. But then the masculine energetic came into play, and it went from their one end of the seesaw of the feminine energies of just believing into the scientific and the masculine of the internal, into the scientific and the masculine and the external of needing to see it to believe it, needing the science to prove it. Not really everyone understanding the science getting into mainstream media, getting misunderstood and thinking science proves things, when really, if you speak to a scientist, they'll say science doesn't prove anything. One needs to disprove something to kind of prove it. So they're getting into the paradoxical, and the paradoxical realms can be vast and mind explosive. But if for us, mind explosive in the body, and if something's explosive in the body and you've got Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, hypermobility, your riverbanks are made of sandstone, and then it causes real chaos in the body when the extreme energy comes in. So going back to the book in the Ouroboros, where the dragon, the snake, eats the head, eats the tail. This is the north and south node. South node being the past karma, past action, past. For us, the subconscious is the past, the subconscious is the body. All data and information from our life is in vibrational form, measured in frequencies, which get stored in different parts of the body depending what category, what motion it is. And if anyone gets into body work or yoga, they'll start learning stuff about this. So the woman drew a circle, the Ouroboros, with her right hand, and then asked her to step through it. Now, for us, this connects us into the Menontoul stones down in West Penwith in Cornwall, near Penzance. And it's said in the myth that if you go through them, it will help you get pregnant. I mean, not just on its own. You would be going into the Virgin Mary and Jesus energetics then. But a lot of these myths can be metaphorical. But for us, a lot of metaphorical stuff is confusing. So we have to do stuff literally. So when people in the spiritual realms, spiritual tribes, spiritual communities talk about the gardening and watering your garden, the rest of that, we didn't really get it. So we've had to actually grow our garden, make our garden, grow the food, water it, so that then we had the physical experience to give us that physical, tangible understanding to then be able to understand the metaphor. So she then walks through it, and she goes through it for 3 days. So it linked us into the Menontoul, but it also linked us into, we made notes. Yeah, and so we read the tower, then we read the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man, which is the Hanged Woman, is the card in the spectrums for this week, which we're just about to, we won't show you, we're going to talk on the Hang and the Ten of Wands, but it's number 12, so you've got the 12 code coming in there. Hanged Man is connected to Pluto energies. Pluto has got something like a 248-year cycle, so it's the longest cycle. So the outer planets, the 5 personal planets, are your sun, your moon, the luminaires, Mars, Venus, Mars, Mercury, because it moves faster, Venus and Mars. And then your transpersonal planets. So for us, that's like your feminine energies, your internal body. Your transpersonal planets, which is like your external body, is your Saturn and your Jupiter. Your Saturn, the 3D dimension, the contraction, limitations, rules, boundaries, what one needs. Otherwise, chaos can happen. It's not that chaos is a bad thing. It's just if we have too much chaos, too much expansion, it gets a bit mad and crazy. It gets too much. There's too much energy. But if we have too many boundaries, too many rules, too much contraction, again, it's to either side of the spectrum. It's a huge oscillation. It's extremities for us to gain balance, to gain groundedness, to gain centeredness, especially when there's chaos going on around us. We need to understand ourselves and we need to know ourselves, not necessarily from an intellectual, be able to word it way, but just on our energetics so that we can stay calm and balanced and centered no matter what our environment is. And then your MVMJ Sun P, Uranus, Neptune and Pluto are your outer planets. They have a longer cycle, so they impact a lot more of humanity. So because Pluto's a 248-year cycle, and Pluto is very soon, like in days, moving into Aquarius. Our Pluto is in Libra, but because I think it was about maybe it's a 20-year cycle roughly, but because you have retrograde and this back movement's happening, it actually works out that there's been, since we were born when Pluto was in Libra, now Pluto's moving into Aquarius, there's been 3 signs changed, whereas it worked out there should have only been like 2, but because retrograde happens, it actually works out at about a 15-year cycle, give or take. Zen's coming closer to us. That's always a really good sign that we're getting more centered, we're getting more concise or summary. So it's not short. It's taken us a long time to get to this again, but then we're going to watch this in the bath back, so that'll make more connections, because this is the constructive feedback loop of information in and out of the senses, out and in and out, that being a pattern. But you don't necessarily have to start with in and out and in, out and in and out. You could start with out and in and out, out and in. I don't even know if we got that back to front, because we're in free flow when this happens. We're in a intuitive flow state, which we've always been balanced between left and right hemispheres. Oh, that's it. In the future, it wouldn't surprise us if the 2 brain hemispheres actually, for a real enlightened, not just enlightened, because you get a lot of Buddhist monks and all those people that are enlightened, but for a fully integrated, balanced, enlightened being in the body, mind, spirit, heart, all of it, that the brain hemisphere would actually become one. You wouldn't have the gap down the middle, because they've narrowed the abyss, narrowed the gap, etc. So Pluto affects the whole of humanity and the whole of the globe and has an impact. It's going into Aquarius. So for us, our Pluto was in the element of air, but it was the Saturn time. Perfect. It's 8:23 a.m. here. It was the Libra element of air. The Libra element of air is actually on the global axes. The global axes is the cardinal energies of Aries and its polarity, which is Libra. We're in the Aries new moon energies. We're in the new season of spring, and we're in the new astrological year. And we've actually got 2 Aries new moons this year. And the next one on the 20th of April is a solar eclipse. So this is another really powerful year. 2020 was a powerful year, as we all know, for many reasons. And in June, you had 2 Cancer new, was it 2 Cancer new moons or 2 Cancer full moons? I think it was 2 Cancer new moons. So this is when there's an extra energy in there. So the global axes is your polarity axes of Aries Libra and your polarity axes of Capricorn, Cancer, and that's the cardinal. And so Aquarius is a fixed energy rather than a cardinal. So it's an air, fixed air rather than cardinal air. And we were talking about air before, with polarity being the spiral movement in the body. The upward channel energetics of the body is the fire. The downward channel energetics in the body is the water. And this will be coming into a minute, what we're going to say, which will link in the left and right vagus nerve. And so this is the interconnectedness of everything. But most people project stuff out, project their anger out, project out to others. We tend to project inwards, which is being detrimental to our body from one perspective. But the evolution of consciousness is to experience trauma to a certain extent, because that trauma creates resilience. Pruning plants is creating trauma, but it's depending when you do it on the moon cycle, it can either stimulate growth or retard growth. And if our body isn't harmonically aligned with itself and its own circadian rhythms and the different cycles of the bodies, the circulatory system, the respiratory system, the reproductive system, and harmonize with nature, there's this integration, this balance, and this intuitive instinctual flow that happens. And when one brings that to their conscious awareness, then they can share it. A traumatized body that's had a lot of trauma in their generational lineage, cultural lineage, Catholic Church, sexual abuse, and then they've had that in their own life, causes a really distorted, fragmented body where the labyrinth of one way in, one way out turns into a maze where it's got lots of dead ends. And you can end up having a hypermobile body and a really rigid, tight body at the same time. So the EDS then creates knots of energy, really rigid tightness, and the other extreme of the scale of the hypermobility. Whereas we want to be a bit more in the middle. So the people that aren't hypermobile, thinking, oh, you're really lucky. That's a victim duality reality state of mind. So she went through this thing anyway for a reason, put on a gold ring and went through this. Oh, it's the Highlander. So in the Highlander in Scotland, you've got where you go back in time and you go through from the standing stone circles. Now for us, there's a huge story behind this, whereas we went round West Penwith and she also talks about the 9 days, 9 nights with Odin and the 9 realms. So this is where all the myths and everything come into play. We've never sought any of this out. We've just been searching out a life where we can be happy, content, and not have physical pain. But it's led us to all of this. Whereas most people, or not most people, but a lot of people tend to look for, in this day and age now of the younger generation, into being ascended and all this stuff. And so that takes them on the journey of the myths and the philosophy. But for us, it's more of a jack of all trades is the best survivor going, rather than mastering something, dipping into everything, which is why we love this book, because she talks about, it's not just the Tao of Tarot and the Chinese perspective. She brings in the Greek, the Egyptian, the Celtic, the Christianity, all the different ones, little bits here and there. And that's what works for us, because we've traveled a lot of the world, so we've got an earth grid footprint. We've also met a lot of other people from different parts of the world that we haven't traveled, so it all comes into play. This is really getting long. Can we get to the point, guys? So so the DID's in the body, is in the head, the autonomic nervous system, the vagus nerve, all of this is going to come into play. And when we do our tarot, our oracle cards, what we're doing, it brings it all to the forefront. Yesterday was just amazing for us, because the alignment and synchronicities of what's coming out with the tarot and what each card in the tarot represents. So the King of Cups is 2/3 Pisces, 1/3 Aquarius. In the King of Cups, we'll turn the camera around now. So here, the King of Cups is, you've got Pisces and Aquarius. You've got 2 sectors or decans. A decan is 10 degrees of Pisces. So the King of Cups is 2/3 Pisces, 1/3 Aquarius. And we figured out a whole pattern of, like, whatever the element is, it's 2/3 of. So the King of Cups is water. So the King of Cups is going to be 2/3 water and 1/3 air. The King of Wands is going to be 2/3 fire, 1/3 water. And now it was just figuring out what came before, and that's what we'll talk about in a minute. We then realized that the kings are mutable, The knights are fixed and the queens are cardinal energies. So the queens, the being able to express and communicate in words, or being able to express and communicate one's emotions, which in current society uses words, but for us it's about using the energetics. And you've got NASA and you've got NASA and people being able to actually get into the energetic world more rather than just using words. You know, you've got kids putting blindfolds on reading books. So it's in the intuitive realms. And so then with yesterday, it was kind of like, well, we don't know what the tens are. The 10, and this is what really got us going, the 10, if you've got the Tesla code starts, you know, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 9, the 3, which is like the triangle, the 6, which is a bit more complex when you join all the points together, and the 9 is a lot more complex. But then when you go round that, that's where we showed the spiral yesterday. 1, when you go around to 9, you then go to 10, 11. So you go into like the second tier, and that's where the spiral comes into play. So we're functioning on the triangle at the moment, the 3, because when you put the spectrum, one end of the seesaw and the other end of the seesaw together in a circle, that's what the energies are. Now, just for us, and so when we do our card reading, we always do the bottom of the pack being the subconscious, unseen, unaware spectrum of the reading, and the top being the conscious. Now, this could have been 2 different colours and it could have been 2 different numbers, but it just so happened that both the numbers were 8 and both the colours were red. So the only differing bit was the cups and the wands, which is perfect because the first, we're on the first week of this, which is just more going into it, but the second week is when it actually starts on the red chakra. So it's perfect for us to get these cards out to get read, because that's aligning with the external reality, the cards coming out, which help us understand, because we're deaf, blind and dumb inside. So we use these external tools to help us gain connection and understanding. 8, because 8 is our birth given name, vibration. There's lots of things to 8. We're not going to get into it so much. And so the only difference is the cups and the wands. Cups being water, wands being fire. Now, we showed on the axes that you've normally got, here's you've got the 8 of cups is normally opposite 8 of pentacles. So you have that axis, you have the 90 degrees square axes. But for us, we've got 8 of wands and the 8 of cups. You're actually working with this axis here, which is where you join the outer ones to make the square. So when you join these 2 outer points together to the circle, it makes 1 point. So we're actually dancing with 3 points on this circle. If you've got all the different spectrum cards on tarot cards on this circle, we're dancing with this one, which is these 2 together, and then we're dancing with these 2 here. That's just a very simplistic view. So if we're dancing with 3 points, we're working with the 3, the triangle of the Tesla code. So then we got out our chakra yoga, because for us, you know, we're doing the chakra tarot, we're doing the chakra journey. We've got our Iyengar yoga and yoga, which we did for years, which means that body networks imprinted in the body heaps. We turned over the pages. So for us, we go by Trikonasana, because that's what we learned with our Iyengar yoga, which is the triangle pose. The triangle is what creates the strength. For us, triangle pose was one of the hardest, because our pelvis was twisted on all 3 planes. Now, we've got some turned over in here already, but we actually turned over these that go with the thing at the back. So this is Trikonasana, triangle pose, because our sacrum was twisted on all 3 planes from the horse accident when we were 15. 15 is the number of the devil card, which is the rule of Capricorn. That will come up in a minute as well to show the alignment and the synchronicities again. We'd actually turned over one of these pages already. This shows you then how to go into Trikonasana and get all the alignment and the skin directions, because the body works in a spiral movement. So you do have the spiral on the outside of the body, but to start with, because the mind finds it hard to go into that straight away, generally it becomes challenging. So, and then you've got the flow. So yeah, so that's the book. So what was the triangle pose in the book? 200. Look, so that makes sense. So look, in here, triangle pose, is yellow. Yellow is the solar plexus. It's the diaphragm. We're going into the polarity therapy again of those spiral energies that we were just talking about. It's the empowerment, self-empowerment. That's the energies of this channel. And we will be talking about the 10 of Wands, which is the yellow again. We didn't even know that before we started that. So this is the intuitive flow state again. And we're getting excited, but we're managing our emotions. We're being impeccable with our word. Okay, we're going to sidetrack again. So we started writing this down here. We were really chuffed when we put these together because H2O plus fire equals steam. When water is in steam, it's in its lightest, fastest vibration, lightest state. But sometimes we need to be in the state of ice, solid and grounded and mountain-like. Because if you're always in the state of steam and evaporating, you know, you'll be like helium and your balloon would take off. And if the balloon takes off and isn't tied down, then you're just going to float off into eternity. Now, so then we looked at 10 and we were like, got really excited. And we were like, okay, well, let's figure out 10 on its own. We know, and this is where because we were like, why is the Queen the cardinal energies? Because Queens basically is the end and the beginning, the end being 10, because 10 is what the end and the beginning. It's comes after 9, which is the end, but it's also the start 1 of 2. So we learned that 10 was the queens, the end of the beginning. We know the kings come before the queens. The kings are the 7s, the 8s, and the 9s, which then only leaves the 4, 5, and 6 for the knights. So we could figure out the number. We could figure out that that was queen. And then we remember saying yesterday about the pattern on the inside going the opposite direction. So in the inside, it's going anti-clockwise. And this is where I don't know if actually our words were inaccurate yesterday, but there was something that didn't align, because inside you go anti-clockwise to go round with the seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter. Now on the outside, if you go anti-clockwise, the colours are different. You've got blue, red, yellow, green when you go clockwise here, that's going that way there. So that's where the patterning came different. And we said that yesterday. So this morning when we attempted to work it out, we swapped the direction and the colour, whereas actually we only needed to do 1, not 2. And so this is something to do with the backwards planes, the 3 different planes of the body. And so we know the inside goes anti-clockwise, and we know the colours of the seasons, so we can work that one out, because our memory, we can remember all this and we can work things out, but our memory works differently to how we understand people to talk about memory in society. But I think that's still something they're talking about. So we knew that the outside went opposite to the inside, but then we added the directional opposite to the inside, and we did the opposite of the colours, whereas actually the outside and inside go in an opposite direction to make the colours line up and be the same. So we got all excited and all confident and wrote in the book in blue, because blue was going to go with the water. Blue goes with water because it's Queen of Cups. Queen of Cups is water, and we were going to put Cancer, but we got it wrong because we changed the direction and the colour, not just one of them. And so the 10 of Wands isn't the Queen of Cups, and that's why we couldn't figure it out, because we did say earlier that whatever the royal is, that it's 2/3 of the same. But the 10's different, you see. So we couldn't figure it out on the 2/3 because the 10 is the one that's previous, that's the different colour. So that's where this complication come into play. But it's not Cancer, it's the Queen of Discs. And of course the Queen of Discs, Queen of Pentacles, is Capricorn. And we were just talking about the triangle pose being the solar plexus, being the yellow chakra, which is what that colour is. being the triangle that does the 3 points on there that connects that triangle with what we just worked out with the spectrum on here. So these are all different ones of us because our different alters function from the different sensory systems. The different sensory systems grow up at different ages. When you're younger, babies can only see in black and white to start with because they're starting to understand black and white and all the different bits of grey in between, contrast, shadows, etc. And then they'll start seeing in colour. And so this is what's happening to us as we get taken on our journey. When we go into younger personalities, we get the age of that personality in our brain networks. We only have a vocabulary basis for that brain network, and that then happens in the body. So that's why the body then gets weaker. So from all our traumas when we were younger and having to grow up in certain areas, there's certain patterning and networks in our body that didn't learn and develop, hence behavioral development, emotional development. It didn't happen for us, and that's what we're going through now. So anyway, it's not the Queen of Pentacles, it's not the Queen of Cups, it's the Queen of Pentacles, and it's Capricorn. So there's more and more stuff aligning, because yesterday it was amazing because we were talking about the Eight of Cups yesterday, and the Eight of Cups here is actually Saturn in Pisces, which is what's just happened astrologically. Saturn is actually the ruler of Capricorn. And we're now talking about the Ten of Wands, which isn't Capricorn, but the Ten of Wands is what brings, it's the starting thing of the Queen of Discs, which links the Sagittarius to the Capricorn, the fire to the earth. So I don't know, things are just going to get, we're just excited because, and that's amazing because our writing, our drawing, our visual imagery, everything's kind of starting to come together. We still feel we're getting a bit blocked, but that's going to happen. And so we just wanted to be impeccable with our word and show where we'd gone wrong, even though now in this moment when we're on this live, we don't know where we've gone wrong, so we're getting confused again. But that's okay, because this is what the journey is for us. So yeah, this was even longer than yesterday. It's almost an hour. We're going to finish this, and then we're going to get in the bath, and then we're going to read The Hermit. It's only 4 pages long. And the Magician, the numbers in the book all align as well. The Hermit's 4 pages long, and it's like on chapter 4 that then goes to the Magician. 4 is the age where a lot of our sexual traumas, emotional traumas, psychological traumas happened. 4 is actually the collective house home of Cancer. Cancer's the rulers of the chest, the breast, and the stomach. They're areas we still have a lot of issues and congestion with in our body. And that's our missing teeth that relate to the health of your organs. And they're still a bit green from our homemade colloidal silver, gold, copper, and liquid chlorophyll. Liquid chlorophyll has 1 molecular strand different to iron. Iron is what carries oxygen around the body. Oxygen is what the respiratory system is, which is where the breath comes into play, which is your diaphragm and your third chakra, the solar plexus. And what we were doing this morning on our energetic work was like in yoga, one of the instructions is to imagine an escalator going down from your belly button on the front to your sacrum on your back. And that's kind of the cross section, the midsection. So yeah, it's all coming together. Hope isn't such an abstract, desperate thread that we're holding on to anymore. Hope is becoming more of a tangible, seen experience where it's actually happening. And that brings us so much joy, because we first wanted to, some of our first conscious memories are we wanted to die when we were 14. We're very lucky to be here after a suicide attempt at 18. You're talking 29 years since we're 14. 25 years since we were 18. So this has been a really long journey, and the seizures happened almost 7 years ago. So that's why this makes us so happy and so excited. The body's still shape-shifting. We're still dealing with a lot of nervous system pain, nerve pain, a lot of confusion, but we're accepting and surrendering our conscious mind's need to know and understand, and all the different videos we produce on our different channels is showing the fragmentation and the separation between the internal subjective realms, the external realms, the collective, bringing us all together. And that's why there isn't one niche to the channel, but now we're kind of just going over stuff, aren't we, again, that doesn't really whatever. So I don't know, we can't put it all into words yet, but we're surrendering that it's all just going to happen in divine timing, with the language we don't like again, and it's all going to come together in this most amazing way, which is just going to shock and surprise us as much as anyone else, because we have surrendered to an intuitive flow and had the courage to show ourselves through this experience in complete strength with our vulnerability when we're at one of our largest sides, facing our fears of our body dysmorphia, how image is important, all our family conditioned belief systems. Because we feel it's important for people to actually see the experience, and we haven't even shown the worst of it. We've not been able to show the worst of it, because when we're in the worst of it, there's no voice, there's no body movement, we're in paralysis, we're in the freeze state. But we've had to do this because the way our memory works, we couldn't record videos and watch them back, because the ones that wanted to watch them back weren't the ones that had recorded them, weren't the ones that had saved them or stored them somewhere and didn't know how to find them to watch them back. So we had to use these platforms in the way we've used it to function all of it, but then it shows other people what's going on as well. Facing fears of being seen and heard, and it's all practice ground to learn how to edit, to grow. So yeah, there's lots to it. Houses make us depressed, but we had to stay in one spot, and we had to be the only variable changing. This is all stimming, but it's kind of stimming from autistic point of view, but it's also EFT and tapping, but not in any specific order, in an intuitive flow state. And that's us sharing that you know what's best for you. We don't need others or society to dictate to us how to do something or how to think, or it's this way or that way, because what works for one doesn't necessarily work for another. And when we connect to our heart and our breath and the subtle energetic bodies, which means it doesn't matter if your physical health has deteriorated and you can't use your body and exercise in the conventional understanding way, or food, because we've always got our breath and we've always got our heart. And by no means is it going to be an easy journey, because we're our own worst critic. But when we have beautiful living beings of animals that show us unconditional love, or children show you unconditional love. If your child is causing you havoc or going mad or really getting you uptight like this, it's because they're mirroring an aspect of you that you're not comfortable with, that you haven't got to know and understand, that you're not able to show compassion to. That's why our family and our children are our biggest teachers. And we still aren't able to talk to ours. Our sibling, our blood brother, is doing his best. And we're so grateful he's still keep on going, doing his best. But his best is very limited. For us, we've got all the languages of love. And one of the important languages of love for us is time. Anyone can click a button on Amazon and send a gift to them. Whereas for us, it means more if that person has put effort and time into buying the present, wrapping it up by hand, writing a card, writing a note, and putting actual physical time into it. And if one feels they don't have that time, then that's their priority, and therefore they're too busy to have another person that needs that in their life. But we can see the thought and effort he's putting into the gifts, and we're grateful. And I suppose for us, another thing is we hope that maybe he might stumble across these videos, because we're not able to directly communicate or start those balls rolling again yet, because he said to us he's there for us when we're ready. But for us, it's not about when we're ready, it's about when he's energetically ready. And when people aren't able to face their own fears and their own traumas and connect into their hearts, which is their journey, if that's what their journey is, then that's okay, that's where they need to be. But for us, still in this fragile, vulnerable state, we need to protect our little ones. Or not protect them, we need to do what serves them best. And when they have a lot of attachment and abandonment issues and trauma issues, and we're still navigating these PTSD reactions where we go into paralysis and other states, we have to be very careful about the energetics of the environment, the energetics of the nature, the energetics of the person, the energetics of that life experience that we surround ourselves in with, or that we interact with. And our family can be our biggest teachers, but at the same time, they can be our biggest triggers. And so therefore, he's experienced similar traumas to us on one level, but ours are more extreme on another level. And so we can't put ourselves around that unless they're at a certain energetic state, level of self-awareness and ability to communicate and understand certain things. And for us, it's not just the action of putting in time to buy the gift, write a card, write a note, or if they're buying a book, to read the book and put notes in it where they feel connections to send that off, because that's us then getting to know each other on a whole new level. Then it goes back to sound and frequency. We can't surround ourselves with energies that aren't on that self-awareness, deep self-growth, transformative self-understanding, connect to their heart, live by their heart values, unless the other is, because sound vibrations want to go back to what it is. So a healthy organ will always want to go to its optimum resonant frequency state. But if the majority of one's life hasn't been a healthy organ, then that organ's more in the traumatic react PTSD state, then if it surrounds itself with other people that's in that state, it's going to go back to that state. And so we can't go back to those states. So yeah, okay, it's interesting. We've said all of that on this live as well. So yeah, okay. And these lives aren't going to happen too much. We're recognizing that this old pattern's being revisited, but with more growth, more connection, more awareness, more understanding. So this is, I feel, we don't know, time will tell with the actions and what actually happens, that this is just a small stint that's going to play out until we're really able to not have the need to do this anymore, and to really let the muddy waters settle and go deeply inwards, and breathe and be calm. But there's obviously still some of the constructive feedback loop of information in and out of the senses that we need to grow and develop. 108:33. Okay. Bye.